scenario of how it played off, and seeing that it wasn't the first incident of data breach. I know that there was one in 2022, I believe, right? Could you just give an account how 2022 was different from this last breach, and what measures were put into place when it happened in 2022, right? And how this particular incident was able to seep through the cracks in a sense. Maybe it'll just give us a better understanding, because 2022 would have given us sort of to raise the bar and standard in terms of security and data protection, because we already had a first breach. Was it that we didn't pay attention to certain reporting from Checkpoint? And who and my follow-up to that question is that, is there someone responsible to manage this data that is collected? Is there a portfolio of an individual within TSTT that manages this data? And the data that is harvested, who owns that data? So it's three questions, basically.
Thank you, Honorable Member, for that quite important question. So the cyber incursion that occurred in 2022 was very similar to this one, in that it was a ransomware attack, and again, based on advice from Checkpoint, which, by the way, had been in TSTT prior to 2022. I'm not quite sure how Ms. Tanya Muller didn't know that. And as I said, very similar. What was different this time around was the exfiltration of data and its public release. Following the incident in 2022, as you know, there's a international best response to incidents of this nature. I've set it out in my submission, where you try to recover, you try to limit the impact of the threat actors. And because, as you know, one of the biggest issues when you have cyber attacks is denial of service, whether your customers can even make calls or access the internet, and loss of data and exfiltration of data. So after 2022, we engaged Checkpoint in a much deeper and meaningful way. They made a lot of recommendations to us to purchase additional or enhanced platforms, some of which already existed in TSTT. The CFO will tell you that we brought in addition, because obviously Checkpoint is an international company that is in the business of cybersecurity. And as a check on exactly what they were recommending to TSTT, we brought in Ernst and Young to advise us on all of the platforms that were being recommended to us by Checkpoint.
So just to put a little stop in there, because I just want to come back to the point of the first breach. Was it somewhat similar in nature to 2023 breach?
Yes.
In other words, was it an external terminal or satellite branch that it was able to infiltrate and then infect? Was that the catalyst, similar to what happened in 2023?
So I cannot recollect if it was internal or external to TSTT. I do believe in that instance it was external, because Checkpoint, to my recollection, never produced a final report that pinpointed the root cause of that attack.
So then did it use also the GitLab platform to be able to?
No, from my recollection,
so no. It wasn't the GitLab in this case.
No.
But however, the GitLab, to enter the GitLab, you had to have an admin password.
A password, yes.
Who uses the GitLab platform?
Well, it would really only be the IT department. So to be clear,
management within TSTT.
Yes. So the GitLab is a place where TSTT stores source code information. So any applications, just for chairman and members of the public who may be listening, sometimes a company develops applications. TSTT has several of its own homegrown applications, the source codes for those applications would be stored in the GitLab.
Okay, so GitLab was like a database for your source codes.
Yes.
Okay, so therefore, the only way you could use your source code is that they are unique to TSTT because you all tailored the source code, the software, or the coding for your purposes.
Yes, so
Right.
it's for
It's internal.
TSTT
Correct.
own homegrown applications.
So then-
and there are several.
But then the GitLab, so in those, that software program would have had a database